Hello ladies, gentlemen, and persons in between. My name is Tim Snowborn, and today we're talking about why you shouldn't hate the haters on this episode of Serious Issues. Gypsy says hi, sitting here in my lap while I record this. Anyway, so, I've just about something I've been thinking about a lot lately. What I basically want to say is that it's totally understandable if someone, when you hear someone spouting political views or extreme views that you wholeheartedly disagree with and that really get under your skin and make your blood boil, it's totally understandable and natural to hate that person, but just because it's totally natural and understandable doesn't mean that it's productive or that it's the right thing to do. What I want to suggest is that what we should try to do is rise above these natural tendencies and become better people. I think that hate is hate no matter how justified you think it is. And what did Master Yoda teach us about hate? That's right. Hate leads to the dark side. And yeah, I know he's a fictional character, but I agree with that principle. Ultimately, even if you feel you're in the right, hate is destructive. Like if you see a guy spouting racial slurs or picking on a gay person or something, again, it's totally natural to get upset about that. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I totally would. But ultimately, I think hate is destructive, even if you think you're hating the right person for the right reason. It's still hate. If you don't want to take it from Yoda, how about Martin Luther King Jr.? He's the one who said, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. It's totally natural and understandable to hate the haters, but it doesn't move us forward. It doesn't actually heal the wounds caused by hate. It actually makes things worse. I'm trying not to justify this in spiritual or religious terms. I don't want to say that we should love our enemies and forgive those who trespass against us because that's what Jesus would do. Because if we don't need religion to tell us that killing and rape and robbery are wrong, we shouldn't need religion to tell us that forgiveness is the right thing to do. I actually brought this up to my philosophy club at the Shore Shot here in Seattle. I posed the question, do atheists agree with that principle? Again, I consider myself an agnostic. I have nothing against atheists. I'd rather have an atheist president than a religious zealot. I don't think that atheists are immoral, amoral, bad people, as some think. But there's a logical, rational justification for the belief that we shouldn't rob and murder and kill people. But it's not so clear that there's a logical, non-spiritual, non-religious justification for the principle that we should love our enemies and forgive those who trespass against us. So I didn't want to use religion or spirituality as my justification for why I think we should do that. So how do I justify that in non-spiritual, non-religious terms? Well, again, I just ultimately think that hate is destructive even if you think you're hating the right people. Even if you think you're totally justified. Hate leads to the dark side no matter how justified you think it is. A world in which people are able to forgive each other and love each other and try to understand each other, that's got to be better than a world in which we all hate each other for the right reasons. I saw this great meme on Facebook that had a quote about how it's a mark of maturity when someone hurts you and instead of trying to hurt them back, you try to understand them and try to understand their situation. I think that's something that we don't try to do very well or very often. When you see someone being hateful toward others and you want to feel hateful toward them for that, it's important to remember their humanity. It's important to remember that they have been through some shit that made them into that person. All these haters that you see, the racist, homophobe, sexist, anything that upsets you, even people who don't believe in net neutrality or climate change or any of those non-demographic issues, any of those non-identity issues, anything that makes you upset, it's important to remember that those people have been through some formative events that have made them into that person. And you have to recognize, again, you have to recognize their humanity and realize that we are all human. I'm not saying that this will be easy. I'm not saying that I'm good at it. This is something that I need to work on just as much as any of you. The idea that we should love each other and forgive each other and recognize everyone's humanity, it seems impossible. Like one of the members of my philosophy club said, what about members of ISIS? Should we forgive them? That's very difficult to imagine. If someone that I loved was in one of those ISIS propaganda videos where they're hacking somebody's head off with a pocket knife, I'm sure that I would be very upset and not at all inclined to forgive them. But just because it seems like an unachievable ideal doesn't mean that it is. It doesn't mean that it's something we shouldn't even bother to strive for. I think that we should try to do that. Even if we never fully achieve that ideal, I think it's worth it to try and come as close as we can. I think that telling ourselves that it's impossible to learn to forgive the worst people in the world is just an excuse we use to not try. No matter how angry I am at someone who upsets me with their political views or their bigotry or what have you, no matter how angry I am, I don't think you'll ever get me to admit that I can't or never should forgive them. It's important to try to understand them. It's important to try to remember where they've come from and what made them into that person. We have to do this. We have to learn to forgive each other. We're never going to evolve if we can't learn from our mistakes. I think that we need to respond to hate, but responding with hate and anger is not a necessary part of the equation. It's a natural part of the equation, but it's not a necessary one. You don't have to hate those people. You don't have to hate the haters. It's natural to hate them. You don't have to do it. And ultimately, it's destructive to do so. So tell me what you think. Do you think it's possible to forgive even the worst people among us? Is there a non-spiritual, non-religious justification for this belief that we should love our enemies and forgive those who trespass against us? Do you think it's important to forgive the haters? Am I alone on this one? Thanks very much for joining me. Thanks in advance for subscribing, liking, sharing, and commenting. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Serious Issues.